let's walk down this hole then again. So if Donald Trump says that fraud justifies terminating the Constitution, and then he says that the Democrats caused fraud to be in the election, they stole the election, then what does he think is justifiable?
Yeah, he's saying you stole an election, meaning that
so
you have
we can terminate the Constitution.
Correct?
So we can terminate the Constitution, right?
To fix this, we need to throw out rules in the Constitution. And then
yeah.
Bring it up. Listen,
do you think that's good?
Lewis, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. There's a little noise going on.
All right. For Donald Trump?
Yeah, very pro-Trump.
Why?
Look, let me give you this analogy. Donald Trump is America's big, dumb, stupid boyfriend, and whoever we want him to beat up, he'll beat up.
Okay, so can you give me a reason why Donald Trump is good?
Because he is loyal to America.
The guy who said he wanted to terminate the Constitution?
That's your rhetoric, not mine.
That's what he tweeted.
That's your rhetoric, not mine. I don't
rhetoric.
What word you're saying.
It's not my rhetoric. It's a direct quote from. It's a direct quote.
From where?
From his Truth Social.
What's the source?
Truth Social.
From Trump.
Show. I'd like to see it. What did it say? I'd like to.
Let's read it out.
Yeah, sure.
So, with the massive revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, and working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and the Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. And then he said,
"Is that a?"
And then he said, "Yes, that's a real post." And then he said, "The fake news is actually trying to convince the American people."
I'm hearing what you said.
Oh, am I cutting out or is he cutting out?
He is.
Okay. So this is the second post where he clarified, just to be charitable. He said, "The fake news is actually trying to convince the American people that I said I wanted to terminate the Constitution. This is simply just disinformation and lies, just like Russia, 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 and all the other hoax and scams. What I said is that when there is a massive and widespread fraud and deception..."
I'm not hearing what you said.
What part?
Lewis, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Do you want me to
I can. Look, I don't hear him saying, "I want to overthrow the Constitution." I'm hearing a bunch of incidentals and precursors and if-then statements. I'm not hearing him say, "I'm going to overturn the Constitution." You're overselling your position. That's what you always do.
A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. What do you think he's saying?
He's not saying... What?
It's like if our election process is guilty of massive fraud, then our Constitution is overturned.
Okay, and he did say that that's
like you oversold your position. You're saying that he's wants to overthrow the Constitution.
One at a time. Hold on. All right, and he does say that the 2020 election was fraudulent, right?
No, he did not.
He didn't say that the 2020 election was fraudulent?
It was fraudulent.
Okay, he does believe that the 2020 election was fraudulent, right? Okay.
It was fraudulent. Yes,
okay.
It was.
So we agree with that. So what does he say is justified if the election was fraudulent?
What's your point, dude? It was fraudulent.
That he said that he... Please just answer the question. Please just answer the question. Please, for the love of God, just answer the question.
Online, you're not showing where you're getting the information from. You're just quoting stuff.
I'm quoting
anything. You're just quoting stuff.
I'm quoting him directly.
You can go to any site you want.
No, you're
hang on,
extrapolating.
Let me finish. You can go to any site you want and find what you want to hear for yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you.
You can go to 1,000 sites to find what you want to hear to get your.
It was
if he says, all right, let's just do basic logic here. It was Truth Social. He posted it on Truth Social.
Truth Social? You serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
You watch Truth Social?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
He posted it.
Now let's
people that show unfactual stuff ever.
Truth Social is his social media platform. Are you okay?
It's media.
His.
things.
Trump
Media
started it.
and fact.
Trump
It's
started
media.
it.
Two different things. Media is not fact.
All right, let's go
Media
through a
is people
basic
doing
logical.
hearsay.
Let's go through a basic logical tree.
Dude,
Okay. So
why you
Donald Trump
dude,
says. Massive fraud allows for the termination of the Constitution, right? And then he
No, he
says,
did not.
and then
No, he
he
did not.
says, and then he says there was massive fraud. What do you think Donald Trump thinks is justifiable after that massive fraud?
dude, why? Can I ask you a question?
No,
dude?
There's a reason why you're not
No,
going
I'm
to answer
gonna
that.
Dude, it's over. It doesn't matter.
Oh
None of
my
that stuff
God.
matters anymore. Don't you get it? Doesn't matter anymore.
Wait, him
all you
saying
do
that
is
this
go
is-
on the path.
You walk
You
off of
won
it,
the
buddy.
election, and You're
Holy-
mad
Wait,
because you
wait,
won the law.
everybody, wait. Him saying he's going to dismantle the Constitution doesn't matter? So you don't care about the Constitution?
Wait.
That's
he said
not
that in
what I
2016.
said.
Like,
You're taking the words out
did
of
he
That
say
is
in
what you said.
2016?
Can
That's not
either
what I
of you
said,
answer a direct question, or do you just
No,
like?
they're not going to
dish
answer
away?
that question.
If he's wait. Look, if he said it in 2015, Donald Trump did what he wanted.
2022.
What he wanted to do. He wanted to. 2022.
2022.
Why does the
2022.
date matter, though? Wait,
2022.
Lewis, why is the date relevant?
Why does it
Because
matter?
like
though? If he won?
because
Why does
because
it matter?
Why
I'll
does it
tell you why
matter?
it matters. I'll tell you.
We
I'll tell
the
you why it
people
matters.
voted him in office. Why is
To
that?
So you're
terminate-
fine
to
with
terminate the
dismantling
Constitution?
We the people voted him in office.
Do you
Why
think
does
that's
that matter
good?
now?
Do you think that's good to terminate the Constitution?
Yeah, man. Look at the country. The country
Okay,
He
well,
didn't
I'm glad
terminate
we
the
can
Constitution.
agree.
The
I'm glad we
country's
can
doing
agree.
great, man.
I'm
Like,
glad we can agree
I'm-
that
I'm
Trump
gonna say
supporters
we're-
want to
we're
terminate the
stopping
Constitution.
wars.
That's great.
We're creating
There's a
peace.
difference between
Yeah.
rhetoric. There's a difference between
So-
rhetoric and actionable policies.
God,
You guys
you think
are
it's
getting.
Okay,
okay
so
to
wait,
vote
wait,
someone
wait,
in who
Lo-
wants to
Lewis.
dismantle the Constitution?
Lewis.
I
If
never
there's-
said that. You
Lewis.
keep putting words in my
No,
mouth.
Lewis
I never
and
said
Scott, why would he say it if he didn't want to do it?
that. Okay, dude.
That's
why
a
are
that's
you-
a rhetorical
dude,
question.
So why are you so
That's
mad?
not a
that we-
rhetorical
us the
question. That's a
people-
very straightforward
Why are you
question.
so mad that us the people
You're
voted
asking-
in office? Majority of the country voted
I'll
in
answer.
office. We
I'll
all
answer
voted
that
in office. Why are
question.
you mad?
I'll answer that question when
Why
you
are you
answer
mad
mine.
about that?
I'll answer that question when you
mad
answer
about
mine.
it.
Well, look, no. I just want to say that you want us to extrapolate, like you extrapolate that he's going to bring about the Fourth Reich or some crazy nonsense.
No,
that
I
you
didn't
heard
say
on
that.
Tumblr.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying. Like you're.
I know you're just saying. I didn't say that,
extrapolating
though.
on extrapolations. You're
No,
trying
I'm
to make
not. I'm
actionable
quoting him.
policies off of tweets.
I'm quoting him.
You're
So-
making actionable policies.
All right, Lewis.
Off of Twitter comments.
Lewis, so then I'm
Lewis,
going to
you
ask you
said
this
it.
question again, and I don't suspect that you're going to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If
There's
he,
no reason
why
that
did he
you
say
lost.
it?
It doesn't
Why
matter,
did
dude.
he? Why did he say it if he didn't want to do it?
He did. You're taking words out of. You're taking one little sentence.
Whoa.
Read
So that's
the
not-
whole context.
I was
Okay, what
trying.
want
By
you
the
to
way,
do
I was
is,
trying
what
to
I
read
want
the
you
full
to do is
context.
Read the
Well,
whole
what he's saying.
context.
I was
of what
trying
he
to read the
said.
full context, and you guys cut me off.
Out of what he
Let me
said.
just answer your question. What he said was, Joe Biden's presidency is not worth defending, but he doesn't have the power to overturn it, and he ultimately surrendered to
sorry.
the final outcome. He
No, that's not what he
protested, But
said.
he didn't overturn
Yes, it
anything.
is what he said.
That's not at all what he said.
protested.
So let's
He
read. Let's
protested. He
reread.
didn't overturn.
Let's reread then.
Lewis, there's no point
Let's
in
reread
arguing
it
with them. There's no point in arguing with them. They're going to.
Wow, thank God you're white knighting for
it
Lewis
is- it
here.
is- no. The point of arguing is they have to know the difference between actionable policies and Twitter tweets.
So then I'm going
I
to
don't think
ask
they know
you.
it.
So then I'm going to ask you again. Why did he say it if he didn't want to do it?
Because he felt like it.
Okay, if he felt like if terminating the Constitution, that's
Because he
probably a
felt like saying
problem,
it.
right?
Doesn't mean that he's
Well,
Lewis, does that mean he can say whatever the
also-
fuck he
hold
wants
on.
on
He
Twitter
also-
and just like be fine with it?
He
basically.
also said it. He also said it in the context of saying the opposition party threw out all of our rights to vote by rigging an election. So
They
you
Okay,
did.
can-
McFly.
we're
So
not-
then
you
let's
could say they didn't, but that's the
McFly.
context
Let's
of
walk
the
down.
truth,
Let's
right?
walk down this hole then again. So if Donald Trump says that fraud justifies terminating the Constitution, and then he says that the Democrats caused fraud to be in the election, they stole the election, then what does he think is justifiable?
Yeah, he's saying you stole an election, meaning that
So
you have
we can
thrown
terminate
away
the
our
Constitution.
democracy, correct?
So we can
now-
terminate
so
the
now he's
Constitution,
saying
right?
To fix this, we need to throw out rules in the Constitution. And then
Yeah.
bring it up. Listen,
Do you think
I
that's
don't
good?
agree with the comments, but let's get something straight. Are we going to really have a debate on what party has violated constitutional rights in the past?
Yes.
Yeah,
in
we
the
can.
past 50
Yeah.
years. I mean, Democrats
Yes.
literally run against your constitutional rights all the time. They're openly against the Second
Can you
Amendment.
name an
They're
instance?
openly against
Oh
the
my
First
God, you guys
Amendment.
idolize
Anytime
and,
you
like,
say
how are
something
they
on
against the Second
anytime.
Amendment?
Look, I'll make it clear right now. If I say a key word, I get censored
No,
on TikTok.
oh, wait,
because
hold on.
liberal ideology censors.
You're kind of right. So I remember.
I'm not. Yeah. So you want to?
I remember this was a
Biden was
really
sued.
crazy quote from Biden. He said this in like 2022. He said, "One thing I do, any student that protests, I throw them out of the country. You know, there's a lot of foreign students. As soon as they hear that, they're gonna have to behave. So like that feels like a super direct like violation of our First Amendment rights, right?"
It's not just that. They also
Oh my
censor.
God.
Wait, hold on. Could we agree
He's
that sounds
trying
like
to
hold on. Could we agree that sounds like a violation of the First Amendment, saying that any student that protests is going to get thrown out of the country?
You're gonna say Joe Biden, but it's really Donald Trump. We all know you're gay, right?
Well,
Well,
yeah, you
don't
can
presuppose.
realize he's not.
I just want to know. I just want to know if that's a violation. I just want to know if that's a violation.
Going through.
Can you
the
tell me that's a
backdoor of
violation?
American speech through.
Can
big
you
tech
tell
companies?
me if that's a violation?
Or did Joe Biden? No.
McFly,
address this, because this is
McFly,
the
I'm
real
not going to
truth.
let you pivot off to something else. Could you tell me if that's a violation?
When you get rid of student visas, that you don't have a right to be in the
Any
country.
student
So
that protests, I throw them out.
If you come into the country and you completely
McFly,
go against,
any student that protests, I throw them out.
When you come in through this country through a visa, do you sign obligations to the United States of America? Are you supposed to?
Yes, the
abide
obligation
by
isn't to
an
not protest,
obligation
though.
to the country that's allowing you in, correct?
Yes, but that obligation isn't
So
to
if
not
you violate
protest.
Those obligations, if you
McFly,
violate
there
those
is no
obligations, can that
obligation
visa
in
be
a
canceled?
visa to not
If you
protest. the
violate
government.
those obligations, can that visa be
McFly,
Okay, so McFly.
there's no
So
obligation.
you're
McFly,
actually
let's-
arguing on an
let's-
argument.
let's-
You're not addressing the real argument.
No, you're
Joe
not
Biden
addressing the
actually
real
went
argument.
after
That's the
Americans.
problem. So
Bullshit, bro.
because
Let him
all of
speak.
this is a walk off.
After
All of this is a
Americans'
walk off
rights
of the initial comment. To be clear, so I mean you're the one walking off here actually.
No,
But
you're not
do you think
putting
it's in
it-
the
you know
spirit?
that- you know
Do
that-
you
you know
think
that
it's in the
McFly.
spirit? Do you
You
think it's in
know-
the
do you know
spirit?
the
Do you
saying,
think it's
you-
in the spirit? Do you think it's in the spirit? Do you think it's in the spirit? Do you think it's in the spirit of the First Amendment
Dog,
to throw
you've
students
been saying-
out? Do
make
you
up
think
your
it's in the
mind.
spirit?
I've
Do you
been
think
quiet
it's in
for
the
2
spirit? Do you think it's in the spirit? Do you think it's in the spirit of the First Amendment to throw students out if they protest? Do you think that's in the spirit of the First Amendment?
In the spirit of the First Amendment?
Yeah.
No, but
Okay.
Hold on.
Wonderful.
Hold on. You still aren't welcome into the country if you violate the American culture.
If you violate the American culture?
100%,
What?
if you coming into the country on a visa, you have an obligation to follow the rules of the country.
Yeah, part of that rules is
If
being
you
allowed
come, hold on.
the
If you
government.
come in, and let's say you start occupying universities,
Mm-hmm.
there will be people in power that disagree with that.
True.
And suspend your visa.
So let's
That's
look
not
at
an argument. That's not an
Rumeza.
argument for free speech. That's
McFly.
just saying we don't like the way you're behaving.
McFly.
McFly. Let's look at
Stop monologuing.
Rumeza. Let's look
So
at
we're gonna get rid
Rumeza.
of your-
Let's look at Rumeza Ozturk, okay? She was an LPR who wrote an essay asking her university to divest from Israel. That's all that she did, and they were trying to revoke her visa for that. Do you think that's in the spirit of the First Amendment?
Okay, in the United States, if hold on, is our foreign policy based on securing the Suez Canal?
How is that
Is
relevant?
that in our interest?
How is that
Is
relevant?
our interest?
What
Is
the
our
fuck
interest? Is our interest securing the
relevant
Suez
is that
Canal in the
matter?
Middle East?
How is that relevant?
Because if we're allowing in, and this is how they think, and I don't agree with this, but this is still relevant. If we're allowing in people from other countries to come in here and then protest against our foreign policy, do you think we would be allowing them in if they came in and said, "Listen, I'm going to
Yeah, it's
abide
called
by
the
all
First
the
Amendment,
obligations
bud.
of this visa, but I'm going to protest everything your government's doing"? Do you think
Yeah,
it
it's
would
called the First
actually be
Amendment,
allowed?
bud.
That's
Okay.
that's the
That's-
First Amendment.
That's not a violation of
Gentlemen.
the First Amendment. That's a violation of your visa.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a
real
violation.
You can say whatever you want.
Is
You
there
can't
any-
have a visa while doing
Is
it.
there
real
any
argument is
caveat? Is there any
United-
caveat
the
in
real
this
argument-
woman's?
Listen, you don't want to hear the violations of the Biden administration because you know there were a ton.
Yeah.
Well, because
No,
the
no,
topic
no,
is
no.
Trump sucks.
The real
The
argument
topic is
was-
Trump
Gentlemen,
sucks.
gentlemen.
Biden was utilizing. Listen, you
I
can.
got bad.
you go-
Yeah, look, gentlemen, I got bad news for you. The whole concept of the First Amendment is kind of romantic, but the fact is you have stewardship of your First Amendment rights. If I go around saying stupid stuff like K this person and K that person, I'm gonna deal with consequences. If I'm over here organizing protests against my university, against the country, I'm getting my visa revoked.
So I'm
You
sorry.
are not protected in any way. Even wait. Even if I were to curse out my ex-wife on YouTube, I could be incarcerated for that. We have stewardship.
That's
of our
not
First
true.
Amendment rights, and it
That
can
is
be
not
taken.
true.
So let's
really?
let's go down the First Amendment, all right? And let's say what is protected and what's not. You have the freedom of speech, you have the freedom of press, you have the right to peacefully assemble, and you have the right to petition your government for redress of grievances. Okay? Those are your First Amendment rights, guaranteed to people in the United States, and Congress shall make no law respecting or preventing the exercise of it.
That's a romantic notion.
No, that's not a romantic notion. That's the
That's
Constitution.
You can't.
That's the fucking law, Lewis.
You cannot incite violence.
Correct.
You cannot yell fire in a crowded building.
Correct.
You can be sued, and if you don't pay off the
Correct.
restitution, you could be arrested and
That's
put in
true.
contempt of
So
court
now-
for cursing out a judge.
I agree.
You're talking about a romantic rhetoric versus the actual actionable policy.
I
We have
partially
to watch
agree
what
with
we
you.
say.
I partially agree with you. You cannot incite violence. You cannot cause imminent lawless action. Now, my question is protesting your government protected under the First Amendment?
The only problem is we're not their government. They're a bunch of outsiders.
Can you
over here.
answer
Kick up
that
us.
question? Answer that question.
Does protesting your government, is it protected by the government?
Yeah.
Not entirely. Like, it's not going to protect you from consequences. Like, the terms and conditions of you being
By the
here
government.
is that you be a good steward of our
Lewis.
policies. And if you don't want to do it, go ahead, go back to your country.
Protest the government protected by the First Amendment.
Huh?
Is your right to protest the government protected by the First Amendment? Just yes or no.
I'm an American. It's my government. I'm
No,
an
just say
American
yes or no.
citizen.
Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, good. So, and we can agree that only protects you from government persecution, and that third-party persecution is fine. So I can come after somebody for their First Amendment, but the government cannot come after somebody for their First Amendment, right?
That's so wrong. For one thing,
How is that wrong?
The Secretary of State has executive privilege to
Where did the
remove
Secretary of
people's
State come into here?
visas. Well, Rubio, wherever, Secretary of State, he's the Secretary of State,
weren't
right?
talking about the
He's the one that's given the final word.
Well,
to kick
no,
him out
we
of
are.
here.
So Lewis is right. We are kind of talking about the Secretary of State because those are the people responsible for revoking visas. That is true.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a difference between actionable policies and romantic rhetoric
Now
or
here's-
toxic rhetoric.
Do you think that it would be appropriate for the Secretary of State to revoke somebody's visa because they were a Jew?
No, but
Okay,
then that's
I agree.
arguing to a specific motive.
I agree. So, do you think we should be able to revoke somebody's visa because of them exercising their First Amendment right?
I got an extension on that. Do you think that they should be having their visa revoked if they were actual communists
Yes.
and anarchists?
Yes, if they
Yeah,
are
so
engaging
that's
in
what's happening.
Lewis.
No, that's not what's happening. Romeo Ozturk was not a communist. She was just asking
sure?
Yes, she was asking her university to divest from Israel. That's what she was doing. That's all she was
Yeah,
doing.
well, better safe than sorry. She could have that conversation.
No.
back at her house.
We don't do better safe than sorry with First Amendment rights. That's not how the U.S. works. Now, do you think that
Bro.
it's appropriate for the Secretary of State to remove somebody's visa because of constitutionally protected activity?
Yes.
Why?
Because constitutionally protected activity means constitutional to the American citizens, not its house guests.
The First Amendment, it says the right of the people, not the right of citizens.
How about this? A young man comes over here. He doesn't say anything, but he just writes leaflets and leaflets and leaflets and pamphlets about how the government should be overthrown. Should he have his visa overturned?
Yes.
And that's what happened to that dude.
Yes,
He was
I'm-
one of those
but I'm
people
not
saying that
talking-
Western civilization.
So I'm not talking about Mahmoud Khalil, which, by the way, there's spurious evidence to say that he was passing out those leaflets. But regardless, I'm not talking about Mahmoud Khalil. I'm talking about Romeo Ozturk. Okay, what was the justification for throwing her out when she was not calling for the overthrowing of the government? She was not calling for imminent lawless action. She was just asking her university to divest from Israel.
Yeah, well, better safe than sorry.
No. You
Okay.
can't. So would you say that it's okay for the government to basically imprison MAGA people for supporting Donald Trump because better safe than sorry?
Well, actually, that's what the government did when they arrested people who were just walking around January 6th.
For trespassing, not for First Amendment.
They didn't even give them a court date. Some of them
That's
spent
not
2
true.
years without even having a fair trial.
They all had court dates. That's not true.
That's they didn't give them a fair trial. They gave them videos
Some of them
to
didn't
say
have
to
time.
deprogram off
Some of them
MAGA.
didn't go
They-
through trial because they didn't have time, but they all had the trial dates.
Oh, they didn't have time.
Yes, but they all had
all had
trial
trial
dates.
dates.
They all had trial
Well,
dates. And
look-
it wasn't, hold on, and we're also diverting because we're not talking about First Amendment there. We're talking about trespassing. We're talking about
said
assaulting
MAGA.
Capitol Police officers. I'm talking about the First Amendment. So do you think it's acceptable do you think it'd be acceptable for the government to say, well, better safe than sorry, and then arrest a bunch of people for saying that they support Trump?
I think personally that's what exactly the government did. Like
That's-
some guys who
but
were
that's
just walking around looking at the
That's not the question,
architecture,
Louis.
But that's
and then
not
became
what they
part of
did.
America's Most Wanted.
But that's not what they did. A lot of the time, they were trying to break down police barricades with stolen weapons.
But do you realize that some of them were just lollygagging, right?
They were trespassing, and I don't even think those people were detained. I'm pretty sure.
No. Some of the people who were just going around taking pictures were put on the FBI's Most Wanted.
Can you give
and
me a
some-
can you
and
give
they
me a
were
case?
prosecuted and they didn't
I'm
even
sorry.
give
Can
a
you give
trial.
me a name?
Well, I can't give you the specific name, but one of the gentlemen was on Megyn Kelly. They talked to Charlie Kirk. They did the podcast circuits. I can't remember their
Megyn
name,
Kelly.
but it is what
Let's
it is.
see. Megyn Kelly.
Oh Lord, are we gonna do that thing?
Yeah, because I think
Yeah,
you're
okay.
lying.
January 6th. Okay, put the January 6th Patriots or something like that. If you want to go do the pomp and circumstance of going on a website. I'm just saying, telling you what I saw on the podcast circuit. Young people.
Well, the thing is that I think you're lying. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, if you say so. Like I said, go ahead, do the pomp and circumstances of pretending.
It's
to
not
look.
pomp and
I don't mind.
circumstance. It's me trying to find what the fuck you're talking about because I almost guarantee that
That's
it's
what
going to be
I'm
one of the
saying.
free
It's like- I
Proud
think
Boys.
It's performative.
It's not
It's
performative.
performative.
How is fact checking you
It is
performative?
completely performative. It is completely performative. Like I said, there was guys doing the podcast circuit about how they didn't get a trial, how they were just taking pictures. If you don't believe those conversations took
Maybe
place,
you don't
go
trespass
right
and
ahead.
break the law, and you wouldn't be put in jail about it.
Well, that's the whole thing. Some of them were just lollygagging.
It doesn't matter
after
whether
the
they're
protest.
lollygag on trespassed grounds. They're still
That's
breaking the
okay.
fucking law.
That's okay. Well, okay. I want y'all to understand. My position is there is the letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law. These men, they broke the letter of the law, but, but the spirit of but they was trying to get railroaded. All right?
Can you be prosecuted for breaking the letter of the law?
Oh, absolutely.
Saying illegal.
Okay, so
That's
what's
the whole thing about Donald Trump. That's the whole thing about Donald Trump. There's something I wanted to say about this the Letitia James thing. Like one, he said that he could invest because he could make his buildings 6 stories higher. That he had the right. He had the right to build the stories, and then he invested off of the 6 extra stories. Finger fucking the paperwork. Letitia James does the same thing by saying she's marrying her dad, or that there's only 4 floors instead of 5. Everybody in New York is finger fucking the paperwork. Letitia James decided to weaponize the letter of the law because she wanted to go out after Donald Trump. And that's why she's going to get what's coming to her.
What the
But we can
Letitia
play
James?
this-
I don't even think that was even the Letitia James. I thought the Letitia James lawsuit was the falsifying business records for the New York case.
So that's Alvin Bragg and Letitia James. Letitia James is the district attorney who went after Donald Trump for saying that Mar-a-Lago was worth what she says it's not, and that his building is worth what she said it's not, even though the deal was already done, and she, as an outside party, said that this deal can't go through, even though it went through already. So, like I said, there's a weaponization of the letter of the law to go
That's not
after
gonna.
your
That's not
political
a
enemies.
criminal. I'm pretty sure that wasn't even a criminal thing.
here's
That
the
would have been a
funny
civil
thing.
action.
Here's the funny thing. The fact that Donald Trump was investing in it and he borrowed money off of the fact that he could elevate his high rises, said that, he robbed us, and that's what they went after him for. Jon Stewart did the exact same thing with a 6-story building. This was selective prosecution by the Democratic Party.
by
Like
the
I said,
Democratic
you could
Party,
weaponize
and you're
the letter
citing
of the law
a
against
district
anyone.
attorney. By the way, I was looking into I can't find which J6 you're talking about on Megyn Kelly.
Well, look, I'd have to be over your
a lot
shoulder
of
helping you look. We could go through this. I could give you a website maybe a couple of days later if you want to go through the pomp and circumstance.
Yeah,
of
feel free
pretending
to DM pretending to look. Okay. I could promise you that I've looked way more into anything on January 6th than you ever have. I could cite to you the name Robert Scott
like I
Palmer
said-
that got a pardon because Donald Trump pardoned all of
He
the
snitched?
J6ers. That
Okay.
no,
It is
because
what it
Donald
is.
Trump pardoned all of the J6ers, even though he attacked a Capitol police officer with a fire extinguisher. He got pardoned.
Well, look, I
do you
look at
feel
it
about
this
that?
way. I look at it as total warfare between the deep state and the Patriots, and the Patriots won.
Do you think we
Jesus
should terminate the
Christ,
Constitution to wage war on the deep state?
No, I don't believe in
think so?
terminating the Constitution as an actionable policy. I
You believe in
protest
you believe in
that
saying
does get out of
it.
hand.
You believe in saying it for fun, though, right?
I said there's a difference between rhetoric and actionable policy.
Why did he say
That's
it?
what you guys never get.
Why did he
That's
say
what
it?
you never understand.
Why did he say
Everything is Hitler.
Why did he say it?
Everything is Hitler to you guys. because
No,
y'all
I
looking
never
for
said the
moral
word
high
Hitler.
ground.
I never said the word Hitler.
Well,
Can you tell me why he said it?
I'm
Can you tell me why he said it?
The simplest explanation is always the best because he felt like saying it.
Yeah, why did he feel like saying it?
If you have to ask somebody why they feel a feeling, then it's kind of dumb. He said it. He probably shouldn't have.
You don't think
but he
the
said
you don't
it.
think the
But once
Occam's
again,
razor? You don't think the Occam's razor? The simplest explanation is that he wants to do it. He said he wanted to do something because he wanted to do it. You don't think that's the simplest answer?
Well, I also believe that we have to reach a threshold before we start to worry about these things. And no, saying something stupid.
Okay,
Say-
buddy. Walk off,
saying
walk
something
off.
He wants to
stupid-
terminate the Constitution.
Saying
It's
something
like you don't
stupid
think
and
he
doing
might.
something stupid are two different things.
Yeah, I said
says
that he.
stupid things
I
all
said
the
that.
time.
I said that he wants to, right? And he said that it would be justified. So why else would he say it, other than the fact that he
Well,
wants
that's the
to?
thing. Well, I'm gonna say it again. I only really care about the actionable policies he put out. I don't care about the clumsy
Well, you don't even
rhetoric.
care. No, you don't
I
care about that.
the romantic
You don't care
rhetoric.
about that either,
I don't
because
care.
you walked off. You walked back
I
to the
don't
rhetoric
care.
anyway. You don't care about the actionable policies because I
Well,
cited you an
I'm just
actionable
saying.
policy, and then you said, "Oh, but look at what the Democrats do." Like you don't care.
Well,
you don't
that's
care
the
about the.
thing.
You don't care about the policy either. You care about the rhetoric when it suits you, and you care about the policy when it suits you.
Wait, in the grand scheme of things, what does caring mean? Who the fuck cares if I care? I'm telling you what's actually happened.
No, you're not. You're telling me. You're telling me. You're telling me what you hear on podcasts because you don't know what the fuck is happening in your country. You're telling me what you hear on podcasts.
If you say so. If you say so. Like I said, I'm talking about observe the manifested behavior after it happens. You could talk romantically about their motivations or what they meant to say. I don't care. The
Or what
fact
they
is,
did say.
one side
What
won
I
and one
quoted
side
them in
lost.
saying, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. You're extrapolating about feelings.
No,
just
I'm
telling you
not.
what
I'm telling
happened.
you verbatim what he said, and you're trying to justify it.
That's what. Well, I'm just saying, don't take Donald Trump literally. Just worry about the actionable policies he put out.
Why would we
I
not
wish
take the
more
president
liberals would just do
seriously?
that.
Why would we not take the president
Because
seriously?
literally.
Why would
Don't
we not
him
take?
literally,
Why would we?
because
Why would we not take the president literally?
Because when you take him literally, you start to think that we're going to invade Greenland and Alberta.
Do you understand that
You see the problem with that?
we absolutely severed a lot of our ties to Canada because of the 51st state comments, right?
As we should.
So it's not don't
They
take him
focus-
literally. That this is having actionable results. This is having actionable policy results.
Okay, yeah, well then if I agree with those actionable policies, like distancing ourselves from an incompetent Canadian
So
communist
that's what I'm saying is that you care about the rhetoric when it suits you, and you care about the policy when it suits you. But you
Well, look,
selectively care.
at
That's the problem.
at this point, it just talks about tariffs. America has a right to challenge some of the tariffs that Canada placed on us with reciprocal tariffs. That's one of those rhetorics and actionable policy situations. Canada has tariffs on us. We're going to put tariffs
We
on
already
them,
had
and we're
tariffs
going
on
to see,
them,
and we're
Lewis.
going to see who capitulates first.
Lewis, we already had tariffs on them.
Well, we didn't have enough.
No, we did.
Didn't we
literally
negotiate
had-
the tariffs we had on him?
Okay, according to my arbitrary beliefs, we didn't.
According
have
to
enough.
Donald Trump, actually, with
Do you think-
the USMCA.
Do you think all
Well,
beliefs are
he
arbitrary?
put in more. Say what?
Do you think all beliefs are arbitrary? Like, do you think there's no amount of objectivity that you can apply to beliefs?
I think I believe actions speak louder than words.
That's not what I asked you. Do you think that? Do you think that all? Do you think that all
Well,
beliefs are?
I mean-
Do you think all beliefs are equal?
See, that's the whole thing. To even ask that question, equal to whom?
Equal.
We're talking
Like, do you think they're
philosophy now.
equal in validity?
To whom? Who's the grand authority?
There is no whom.
Is it God? Is
I'm
it
saying.
me? Is it, who's
Well, okay. Do you
who's
believe
the-
that
who's the
objective
third party?
reality? Do you believe that objective reality exists?
Yes.
Okay, so
Probabilistically, yes.
in comparing it to objective reality, do you think all beliefs are equal?
Yeah, here's the problem. You're turning objective reality into some kind of entity that you have some access
No,
to
I'm
and no one
not.
else does.
No, I'm
Look,
not. I'm
no,
asking you.
Wait,
if-
okay, how about this? This philosophy 101. In any disagreement between two parties, there ultimately is no third party to say who's right and who's wrong. There is no God. There is no grand divine. There is no cosmic woo to tell you I'm wrong and I'm wrong and you're right. So we cannot discuss beliefs like that.
I got a question.
So what's the point
We
of
can only
talking?
talk about
What's the
actionable
what's the
policies.
point
I
of
want to like let you
Let
talk.
me ask him a question though. Just I don't mean to interrupt.
Hurry,
Lewis, is the belief that you don't exist equivalent to the belief that you do exist in validity? Are they as rational as each other?
No, I don't believe in the black and white thinking. I think we, in a probabilistic sense, that I more likely than not exist.
Okay, yeah. So you are able to reach right like more validity in certain beliefs right through rationality. So I mean, what's the problem here?
Yes, because
Okay.
that's what I'm trying to introduce to him. I'm trying
So
to
let's be-
introduce to you the fact that.
So let's be rational.
That's why the problem with beliefs. That's the whole problem with beliefs and rhetoric.
So let's be
the
rational.
problem.
Let's be rational then. If somebody says that they want to do something, or that it would be justified for them to do something, do you think the probability is high that they want to do it?
Not well. Every case is going to be different. He could be drunk. He could be. Hey, look at that butt on that
Assuming
16-year-old.
whoa, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I'm saying that he could say something that he doesn't really mean if he were sober.
So
or
we're
not
assuming
drunk,
that
or
that he's sober. Assuming that he's sober, he's of right state of mind, or at least as right of state of mind as you can be with Donald Trump. Okay, if he says it would be justified for me to eat the pie that's on the counter, we could say that he probably wants to eat the pie on the counter, right?
Yeah.
And then if he says it'd be justified for me to eat the pie on the counter because somebody already ate my pie that I had out on a different counter, you would say that still means that he
Yes.
probably wants to eat the pie on the counter.
Yes.
Okay. Do you see the comparison that I'm drawing here?
Yeah, but it still ends at rhetoric, not actionable policies.
The other
or
one
action.
ends at rhetoric too.
Like I said, there's no point in debating rhetoric. We can only.
So do you
debate on
think
what
the
actually
probability? Do you think the probability is high that if he says the Democrats stole the election and when elections are stolen from you, it justifies terminating the Constitution, that he wants to terminate the Constitution?
No.
How is that
No,
not
I don't
directly
think-
analogous?
No, because
Louis, why
if he were to go through the steps that would take for him to terminate the Constitution, he'd know that he would lose and eventually come to his senses. He has as much chance of saying, "Wow."
I'm
I said
I'm
something
asking
stupid."
I'm asking if he
He ha-
wants
he-
to. I'm asking the probability of him wanting to.
We're talking about wants and rhetoric again. The fact
Yes,
is,
Louis.
No,
Does
no,
he
no, no, no.
want
We're talking
to?
about probability of him wanting to, because you had no problem with him saying that because somebody ate the pie on the other counter.
Saying.
You had no problem saying that because somebody ate the pie on the other counter, and he says it would be justified for me to eat that pie now, that it's probably the case that he wants to eat that pie. That's probably the case.
Yeah.
So why is that not the
Probably.
case for the same exact
Yeah, well, it's
quote
because
with the
there's a
term
difference-
swapped out?
Wait, because there's a difference between highly probable and ain't no fucking way in hell this is going to happen.
Lewis.
Yeah,
you're
I
just-
understand that.
you're just
I
scared to admit that you're
understand
wrong.
that. Why
No,
why
no.
is this not highly probable if it's the same situation with terms swapped out?
Because he doesn't have the power to do so. He doesn't have the soldiers. He doesn't have the backing of the military.
You can want to do
He
something.
doesn't have a He doesn't have the military dictatorship that y'all keep saying.
You
he
can
has.
want to do something without having the practical means to do it, right?
But then we're talking about criminalizing want.
I'm not talking about criminalizing. I don't think he should be put in jail for
Not-
this.
well,
I'm just saying I feel uncomfortable voting for somebody who wants to terminate the Constitution.
Okay, as you have every right to feel uncomfortable.
Hey, Lewis.
Okay, but do you think I'm justified in thinking that he wants to terminate the Constitution?
Whatever goes on in your brain is your
No.
prerogative. I would
Stop
not take that
appealing
away
to
from
this non-objective thing. We already agreed that we could probably assess probability to some extent. He probably wants to do that if he says that it would be justified for him to do that, right?
you. But do you understand
Okay.
that a lot of people have?
So now
the whole
stop
problem
pushing
with
back on the idea that he probably doesn't want to do it, because we both agree now, hopefully, through his language, that he probably wants to do that. So let's assume that he probably wants to do that. Why do you feel comfortable voting for the person who probably wants to terminate the Constitution?
Because probabilistically speaking, we all wanted to terminate the Constitution at some point. We all have dreams of being quote unquote. Wait. Quote unquote. We all wait.
No,
Quote
Louis,
unquote. We
that's
all
not
have
true.
dreams.
Bro,
We all have
what?
dreams of being quote unquote dictator for a day. Remember
Bro,
that
what
letter?
are you talking?
Do you
What is
think
this
do you think it's
projection?
good to vote for somebody who wants to be a dictator?
I don't mind someone who says that they wouldn't mind being a dictator for a day. We all
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.